coming up. When are tattoos and piercings good or not good for coping with trauma? That's going to happen right now on this full-length edition of Depraved and Debaucherous. Thanks for catching the show. Thanks for listening to me. I'm King of Podcasts, and I really appreciate all of you checking out this episode. I think it's very important. And it is part of a companion piece. There will be an episode that I'll talk about this a little bit later on in a future episode, just to kind of give you the track of what the study talks about. But I also want to get a little more into the study itself in terms of what is being said about tattoos and piercings being more common among those who experienced childhood abuse. Because I'll bring that up on a regular episode, one of the many episodes that you'll hear on a Monday or Friday. I've already went ahead and prepared it and produced it, so I'll have that for all of you to check out for yourselves. And then I also want to go ahead and take this episode to kind of give a little more context to it. So this is where I'm coming from, because there are a lot of people, that are really interested in getting tattoos and piercings, but do they really know why? Is it because of peer pressure? Is it because of what they want to just do? Because it's their own personal form of expressing themselves, a form of expression, which if it is just straight up expression, then I totally understand the reasoning by it. But I think we should go ahead and admit that there are some people out there that don't feel the same way, that the tattoos and piercings they're getting are a result of something else that happened in their lives. And I noticed that in a couple different ways because of there is an association being said about childhood abuse and neglect with tattoos and piercings in the population. And it's the results of a representative community survey, which was published in BMC Psychology or BiomedCentral.com. And they talked about this. And they said this in their background. Tattoos and piercings are becoming increasingly popular in many countries around the world. Individuals seek such body modifications, reporting diverse psychological motives. Besides purely superficial considerations, they can have a deep personal meaning, tattoos and piercings, so they can mark and support the emotional processing of significant life events, including formative experiences from early childhood. However, there's a lack of studies that examine the links of tattoos and piercings with experiences of childhood abuse and neglect in large population-based samples. So we have that they're trying to work out right here, where there was a survey that was based in Germany, a representative German community sample. Ages 14 to 44 years old questioned whether they had tattoos and piercings and filled out a short form to get their information to kind of get some context here. Conclusions corroborated that previous research finding that body modifications could have special significance, for individuals who have survived adversity. So that can also mean interpersonal trauma at the hands of caregivers. Or I also think it's also the same when it comes to sexual, emotional, and physical abuse, from what I've seen as well. When I have seen women that have had labrum piercings, or septum piercings, some of that might get a feeling that there might be something there as to why they did it, because it is something to kind of tag themselves as being victimized. And it's more of a victimization than it is a survival deal. Now, there are those that do it for survival reasons, and I think there should be a distinction between both. I want to take from a story from Al Jazeera that talked about this as well. In Brazil, they talked to a tattoo artist helping women overcome trauma, abuse, and scars from accidents. So, trauma and domestic abuse. So, in this story, they talk about that. They talk to one lady who goes into this tattoo parlor in Sao Paulo, Brazil, hoping to cover up the scars on her forearms as a result of domestic abuse. She's a mother of two, Thalita Souza, and calls the abuse incidents where her partner assaulted her, pulled her hair, hanged her, and kicked her over a period of 4 years. Accidents. And then she said that when we talk about domestic violence, there's a lot of stigma. They always try to blame the woman. They don't think there are people who can hurt other people. Because he pushed me, it was considered a fight. I was pushed out of the door. I tried going back in. He closed the door on me. The glass shattered. I ended up with 66 stitches and these scars, which are on her arms. So it was termed an accident, a domestic accident. So she heard about a tattoo project called We Are Diamonds through another Facebook page where help and advice was shared for victims of domestic abuse, decided that she needed to cover up the scars to partially move on with her life. Now, this I've seen before. If you do have scars, and it's from various reasons. I remember one girl I used to work with when she worked in telemarketing. She did it on her stomach after she had a child because of the scars that were left over from the C-section. So she decided, because of the way her body was dysmorphed after that, she decided to put a sunflower tattoo right along her stomach. That was her thing for covering the scar up. Made her feel more secure and more comfortable. So it's surviving pregnancy and, the result of having a child as a result. So I can get where that part comes from. Now, this tattoo artist here, who's named Carla Mendez, she started up this program for We Are Diamonds, and she has helped out over 160 women, or 160 people so far. And she talks about the first one she helped, a domestic helper for one of her clients who saved 3 months of her salary to be able to get a tattoo and cover up a scar on her arm. And she says, when I was drawing her tattoo, she looked at herself in the mirror and started to cry. And there I saw that my work could change people's lives. That's when I created this project. I told her she didn't have to pay and she could go buy a new blouse or a bikini to enjoy her new life and send me some pictures. And she has found a sponsor for the equipment she uses for the project. And this 40-year-old woman sets aside 2 days a week to help women move on from their emotional past. This, I think, is a very brave, heroic, and very empowering type of thing to do for women that are dealing with what's going on. So I can understand where that came from. Another lady I talked about how she underwent hormone therapy for 2 years and gained about almost 100 pounds. And it bothered her because everyone asked why I was obese. She reached 220 pounds, got high blood pressure, diabetes, anemia, spinal disc herniation, and had to go psychological treatment, to accept everything that happened in her life in those 2 years. And then she underwent a procedure to reduce her weight and was left with scars from her chest down to her upper thigh. And she couldn't find a cosmetic procedure that would soften them. And while doing research, she learned about Mendez's project and decided to do an application telling her story. And therefore, Mendez did a procedure of which she does not charge for the tattoos, of which some of them could cost as much as $2,000 American. So that's the idea. And so I bring up this story to bring up the point of, if there is the reason to cover up imperfections. But when you have tattoos that are being put on, well, they're not just a certain size that just have some sentimental value to you. But when they're being done so big and so prominent that you ask yourself, well, why do you want to go ahead and do that for? Why do you want to go ahead and cover cover your skin so much? And I think this part has to be because of abuse. I really believe that. And that's where the study I talked about actually brought this point across. And so it's about deliberate body modifications. Now, it's been a long cultural, historical tradition, and they've been used as a form of expression, for instance, of cultural values, sexual maturity, or the social status and wealth of the wearer. So in 2016, 37% of individuals above 14 years were in this German community study. And the tattoos were reported by people of all levels of education, vocational success. So everybody could get everybody got tattoos. Remember, a lot of people of various, backgrounds that had tattoos. And a similar proportion of men and women also reporting to have tattoos. Now, just so you know, the studies on tattoos and body piercings was done back in 2006 in the United States. And it was reported in the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology. But it was a much different time back then. And at that time, of respondents that they had, of which they sampled 253 women, 247 men, ages 18 to 50, And they said that 24% had tattoos, 14% had body piercings. And it was equally common in both sexes, but body piercing was more common among women. And other associations were a lack of religious affiliation, extended jail time, previous drinking, and recreational drug use. So some of that point was talked about the fact that there was a particular stigma that came with men and women that had a significant amount of tattoos. Well, now it's normalized. 2006 to today, that's completely different now. But what's happened now is when there are those that are doing it because it might just be the go along to get along type of thing, but I hope there isn't that case, that there are the good reasons to go ahead and, if you want to go ahead and do a body modification, such as tattoos or piercings. I'm not judging anyone that doesn't do it, that wants to do it as a form of expression, as a form of art, a form of beauty if they feels fit. That's fine. Like, I'm not judging that part. What I'm saying is, there are some that are doing it that I feel like they might feel regretful after the fact. And that's where I'm coming from with this. Now, they did talk about childhood abuse. But really ask yourself, there are others that talked about that. Some of the tattooed and pierced individuals of this German community study, they talked about that there was reporting a higher need for uniqueness and lower self-esteem than those without any body modifications. And body modifications have been related to comparatively pronounced risk-taking behavior and sensation-seeking. And they were more common among individuals with personality disorders, pathological behaviors such as non-suicidal self-injury, and the form of cutting. And along those lines, a recurring theme in the literature has been emotional regulation and coping with stressful life events. This is the part I wanted to bring up. So, in a previous investigation in Germany, they described the marking of a stage of life, overcoming adversity, and striving to reclaim control over one's life as motives for the acquisition of piercings and tattoos. And numerous studies have talked about the impervious experiences of bodily harm inflicted by others. And particular survivors of sexual abuse reported the wish to overcome past experiences by means of body modification. And an older community study from New Zealand also found comparatively higher rates of childhood sexual abuse among women with tattoos. In a similar way, researchers suggested that a piercing could be an expression of the wish to heal past wounds. Septum piercing is one of the most likely, from what I've seen. Piercing may also enable the reconciliation with formerly refused or disassociated body parts. It fits that following periods of healing time promote the occupation with one's body as well as its care. And a recent study also found higher rates of childhood neglect and abuse among intimately pierced individuals. But there is a lack of comprehensive, systematic investigations in the associations of childhood abuse and neglect with tattoos and piercings at the population level. But what I'm saying is, what about those that are doing it because they feel a low self-esteem, they feel they've been diagnosed with personality disorders as a result of what happened to them? And as I said, emotional regulation and coping with stressful life events. This is the part I am concerned about, and this is the reason I bring this up. So I hope everybody understands where I'm coming from here, why I think this is an important subject, and why I hope that those out there that might see this story will realize, okay, I'm concerned, and I want to help women out there if they want to do what they're going to do when it comes to changing up their looks by doing tattoos and piercing. That's one thing, but if you're not able to appreciate the beauty that you've been given already before you even decide, okay, I'm going to do something else, because some people are doing it and I think some women are doing it because of hatred of their bodies. And the reminder of what they look like before, that they need body modification, again, to reconcile, to heal, to cope. And that's part of the thing that I think is very important to bring up. So that's a study I thought that was very important to bring up, and I think it's just, I would like to just bring the conversation up to the forefront. I am not judging anyone that has tattoos and piercings. Let me just repeat that again. But there is something behind that. And I think some men and women out here might understand where I'm coming from by bringing up the story. So I just brought it up as such. So don't judge me just because I brought this up. I'm not judging anyone. I'm just reading the study. And I'm examining it for what it's being worth. From all the conversations and all the research I've done, I feel like there's some merit to some of this. And that's why I said it. One more study before we go wrap things up for this full-length episode. Narcissistic men are more prone to premature ejaculation and to difficulty reaching orgasm. So think about this when you're dealing with your significant other. If they are expressing or giving off narcissistic tendencies. So psychology researchers recently uncovered this finding. Highly narcissistic men are more likely to experience difficulty reaching orgasm, but they also report more premature ejaculation. This research is published in the Sexual and Relationship Therapy, and that the arousal for a narcissistic man might be more dependent on the specific conditions surrounding sexual interactions, such as whether they have a new partner. So they interviewed 1,300 men, comprehensive questionnaire, ages 18 to 85. And they observed significant relationships, man, I'm fumbling all over the place, between sexual narcissism and a number of relationship and sexual variables. Men higher in sexual narcissism reported greater likelihood of having a sexual partner, more frequent masturbation and partnered sex, a greater importance of / interest in sex, lower sexual satisfaction, and lower overall relationship satisfaction. And they were more likely to prefer masturbation over partnered sex. And in the study, they said that narcissistic men are strongly driven by their own desire for pleasure, deriving sexual satisfaction more from orgasm than from other factors associated with partnered sex, such as feelings of intimacy and relational interaction. They are also more prone to quicker ejaculation, presumably in early in a sexual relationship, and to find difficulty reaching ejaculation, presumably as the relationship novelty wanes. So they're just getting off on the domination, the control. That's the whole idea. Narcissism combined with sexual dysfunctional symptomology to predict lower relationship satisfaction. So if you have a new partner coming in and he's struggling to get up in bed, especially if it's a man, that is an issue. And also for women, the same thing, because they're getting off on the domination, on the red flags that they're already presenting to you. And that might be something you need to think about as a major red flag. If you're getting into a relationship or you're starting into a relationship and you're starting to see these red flags coming in about somebody who's a narcissist. And if you've listened to this episode or past episodes of Debrided and Debaucherous, you know that is the case. Because I keep talking about it because it's important for all of you to know, especially all you young women out there. I'm just trying to help out. That's what I do. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for listening in. Another full-length edition of Depraved and Debaucherous. Thanks for checking out the show. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you next time.